Hi, everyone. It's my distinct privilege to welcome Bill Hueter to the conversation today. We have had a very rewarding relationship with Bill. He was actually our EOS implementer and business coach at a critical moment in Brand 3's history and helped us right the ship to move forward and be ready to grow. And so we are so grateful, and I am excited. Bill Hueter is a serial entrepreneur, an EOS implementer, and a trusted business coach known for helping leadership teams get clear, get aligned, and get results. He builds his work around integrity, transparency, and a genuine passion for helping entrepreneurs live their best life both in and out of the business. His entrepreneurial path includes founding 3 companies, one culminating in a successful private equity exit. Under his leadership, one of those companies earned a place on the Inc. 5000 list 9 years in a row, a distinction few organizations achieve. Bill is also a lifelong learner and adventurer, recently retiring from his general aviation flying career as an instrument-rated pilot who spent years flying his fully updated 1978 Cessna Cardinal RG. And today, Bill combines his entrepreneurial background, his EOS mastery, and people-first leadership philosophy to help teams build great companies and great lives. He brings calm confidence, data-driven insight, and a steady hand to every session, meeting leaders where they are and helping them create the clarity and accountability they need to move forward. So having said all that, I'm really excited to talk to you.
Thank you. You and I can go on the road and you can introduce me anywhere. Thank you.
I also sing and dance, so if you need that, then we can just do a whole
anything to warm the crowd up.
We can do a whole thing, yeah. So I think to kick this off, Bill, we're talking about culture, and we've started talking about culture a lot because even though we're a branding company, because we know that brand can help build a positive workplace culture, and culture is overlooked, right?
I think culture is A, misunderstood. B, those that understand it know that it is inextricably linked to people. And people is the number one hardest issue to deal with. Therefore, many companies will speak in culture terms, but will not act in culture terms. I firmly believe, I firmly teach, and I am completely rooted in what we define as right people in right seats. Right people are people that live the core values of the company, and right seats are people that get and want and have the capacity to do their job well. That's the part that is the culture, that drives the culture, and everybody has to buy into that to have a better culture and to have one view of what culture is at its base and how to create a great culture for a great company.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think people tend to avoid that work?
Because what if the person is not right person or right seat?
Okay.
Yeah. So you either have to get them there. I'm going to speak very, very plainly. Right person, right seat. You need to have both. If somebody isn't there, it is our obligation as great leaders and great managers to mentor them, to manage them, to do everything we can to get them there. But speaking plainly, there are people that just don't meet the minimums, even if the minimum is acceptable to you. So what the consequence of that is, if they're a right person, which means they live the core values, but they're not right seat, the consequence is that you've got other seats. Maybe there is another seat that they get and want and have the capacity to do. Because they're right person, they may fit another seat. If they don't, open and honest, completely transparent, for the greater good of the company and for their greater good, you have to liberate their future. Who wants to do that? Who loves managing people to a point of saying, this isn't working, this is not a fit, we're in pain, you're in pain, I'm sorry, we're going to have to let you go. This is at the root of why cultures are hard. It's hard to get companies to address culture in a meaningful way.
Okay. That's really.
So that was part of the picture. The other part of it. So that's right. If you have a wrong person, right seat. Example, you have a salesperson who hits all their numbers every month, every quarter, every year, drives revenue, is respected for that, but they're wrong person. They don't live the core values of the company. You can't fix wrong person by putting that person in another seat. And so if somebody is not living the core values, they're a cancer in your culture. And so you've got to liberate them. Who wants to do that? I get back to, this is serious business. This is hard business, and it's the number one thing that all leaders, all owners, all managers want to avoid like the plague.
That makes a lot of sense. And there's kind of a parallel in the brand strategy work that we do. It's not hard in the same way that you're describing, but the conversations you have when you're building your core brand strategy and figuring out who you are and who the right person is to talk to, that's hard in a different way, in that it can bring up uncomfortable things, like maybe the company isn't focused on the right things. That's hard to admit, but more I find it brings an anxiety about making choices, about narrowing the focus and the strategy so that it can truly be effective, because you're letting go of something to move forward and grow stronger. To that end, so I see a lot of overlap, of course, in what we do. We both build foundations that help companies grow. You're looking at the operating system, at least as EOS describes it, building culture. We're looking at the brand strategy, which I like to just describe as telling the right story to the right people at the end of the day. And then realizing that when you have that, that can actually enhance marketing, sales, and customer experience. It's a powerful tool in hand. So we're powering growth from different angles, but I'm curious how you view that. How do you see the overlap between the work that we do, between your work as an implementer and brand strategy?
So brand strategy fits into the tools of EOS in what we call the Vision Traction Organizer. There are 8 questions that help you form your vision and execute on that vision. One of those 8 things is marketing strategy. And marketing strategy has 4 parts. There are 2 major parts. One is, who are you talking to? The other is, what are you saying to them?
Yeah.
One of the great things about EOS is it just makes it all so simple.
Yeah.
Who are you talking to and what are you saying to them? Who you're talking to are the people are that currently are and in the future will be your best clients.
hmm
And you look at that, we look at that through the lens of the intersection of 3 things: your target demographic, your target geographic, and your target psychographic. So your target demographic is the simple explanation I give clients is, it's anything that you can measure. If it's consumer, it's how old are they, how many kids they have, household income, dot 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 dot. If it's a business, it's how many years have they been in business, what industry are they in, and then the rest is, what are you saying to them, and what you're saying to them are what we call the 3 uniques, the proven process, and the guarantee. The 3 uniques are the 3 things that in combination makes your company, which is, and your brand is the public view of your company. The 3 things that in combination makes your company unique in the marketplace. The second is the proven process, which is what does this picture look like from a client's point of view? Explain to them how you're going to take them from being a skeptic, because you're talking to them as a prospect, and every prospect is skeptical, to a long-time satisfied client. So paint that picture for them. That's the second thing that I encourage my clients to communicate. And the third thing is, if you're able to offer a guarantee, then offer that. And a guarantee is a pledge and a consequence. We will do X or Y is the consequence. You don't have to have a guarantee. You can just have a pledge. But when you put all those elements together, the target market by demo, geo, psycho, and the intersection of those 3 things with the 3 things that you'll communicate, which is the 3 uniques, the proven process, and the guarantee. That is how the tools of EOS get aligned with what you're talking about.
hmm It's so simple, but so many people just don't know yet that they can have that power to have this kind of clarity.
It's such an elegant way to help not only the leadership team and eventually the rest of the company understand what the company is, where it's going, but to be able to identify the most important parts of that for your clients. So for example, in the 3 uniques, if your core values, often the company's core values are one of their 3 uniques. And what I say to my clients is, do you want less friction in doing business with your clients? If you do, pick clients that share your core values. Because if they share your core values, so much of what of the tension and the issues between a company and its clients, so much of that goes away.
Well, when you talk about all of these essential core elements that you create that helps someone discover their identity. How do you view the work that we do as brand strategists and then helping people in marketing and sales? What do you hope to see happen as those core strategic nuggets get picked up and then translated into storytelling and visuals and strategies?
You've hit on a really good point. I go through 2 days of vision building with clients. We determine their core values, create their core focus, set their 10-year target, establish their marketing strategy and their 3-year picture and their 1-year plan based on the 10-year target. So you get them all aligned. You go through all of this great work. You facilitate them through all of these questions, and they come out with a vision that has all those elements in it, where it's all clear, it's all aligned, and they're usually pretty excited about it. And what happens in with too many clients is that all of a sudden the next day they forget they did all this work and they leave it behind. They don't plug it into the way they present their brand and market to their target clients. Your core value should be front and center on your website, and it should be at the top of the page in every job description you write, because what matters first is that there are core values match. Core values they need to be, every piece of marketing, in every discussion, in every presentation you make. You've got to take all of these elements, the core focus and the marketing strategy, and you've got to preach it and you've got to evangelize it everywhere. If you don't, then you're not transmitting a brand, you're not communicating a brand, and you've already done the work.
Yeah, and what we do, so I'm a story brand certified consultant, and that's one of the pieces I bring to the table here. It's a big part of what we do is create a messaging framework around those critical elements of the business, like what makes them unique, how they do what they do, the heart behind the business, what they promise to their customers or clients. But there's a little more framework around it that really invites them into their story. That's really the big flip that it does. It invites someone else into their story and actually makes them even more willing and excited to hear about what makes them unique and their core values and all of that, along with the design and the visuals. So when I think about brand strategy, a lot of it is about alignment and connection, but it's also about invitation and empathy, to bring them in.
Stories stick in people's heads because you paint a picture, do it quickly, do it with intense emotion. They will remember that. You can do that with core values. You can do that with core focus. You can do that with marketing strategy. The stories are at the crocodile brain level of all of us as social animals.
Yeah, I would add to that well, it's what you just said. It is our native language. Story is our actual native language as humans that we speak, not facts and concepts and frameworks. So, and yeah, I think that's beautiful. My dad was a pastor, and I learned early on, that what people remember from a 15 to 45-minute sermon, depending on who the pastor is the stories and the illustrations, because they were invited to step into those, with the main character. And the only flip in story brand is the person you're talking to becomes the main character. What do you think happens when, this might sound like a basic question, but I think the answer might be interesting. What happens when a company has either the operational framework like EOS or the story, but not the other, where they only have one piece of the puzzle of what we both do?
There are companies that have a story because they were created sometime in the past and they've gotten from where the founder started them to someplace, someplace in the present, and there's a positive story to be told there. But without a system, a framework, without a system, you will only go so far. And this is just as true as gravity. You can't fight it. If you don't have, you can roll your own system, and that works for some companies to some degree, but you've got to have a set of tools that have this interlocking, what I call connective tissue ability to take the company from where you are. If your goal is to increase top line revenue, if your goal is to increase bottom line revenue, if your goal is not about revenue, it's about culture, it's about simplified and documented processes, it's about serving clients better. All of those things require a system. And so having a great story of where you were in the past is good, but to get to the future, to extend that story, to embellish that story, to write the next chapter in that story of greater success, it requires a system, and EOS is an example system.
I want to dig a little deeper into that, into the work of culture building once the foundation is built. Once you get the right people in the right seats, how important is it for them to know and be able to articulate the brand's story and the core things that you are building in?
Yeah, all right. So let's take a company of, give me a number.
Let's do 10.
Okay. So if it's 10 people, and let's say there are 3 on the leadership team.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So there are 3 on the leadership team, and there are 7 other people. And I'm working with the leadership team, and I'm helping them determine core values and core focus and 10-year target. And they're creating goals, but they're creating culture at the same time. It doesn't matter if it's a small company or if it's a big company. I see the leadership team and the rest of the company as what I call the tractor and the trailer. The tractor is the leadership team. I've got a hold of these 3 people, and have them working in a system, which means they got the accelerator pushed all the way to the floor, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the rest of the company, those other 7 people, they're in the trailer. If they don't know the system, if they haven't heard the system, if they haven't been taught the system, if they aren't bought into the system, they're in the trailer, and the brakes on the trailer are locked up. So it doesn't matter how hard you're pushing the accelerator, the drag on traction is incredible. So everybody's got to see the same vision, and it's top to bottom and side to side, whether it's 10 people or whether it's 100 people or whether it's 1,000 people.
Yeah, that's excellent. I think this is an interesting question. I'm really interested how you will answer this. So you talk about, what a difference EOS made in your life, that you went from feeling crushed, and carrying a lonely burden to feeling supported by a leadership team. That's a big shift. This is the question, how much of building a healthy culture and a productive growth culture is about changing the story that leaders tell themselves about their role in the company?
First of all, they have to know the story. Second, they have to believe the story. And third, they have to communicate the story. Okay. But even before that, what struck me when you were saying that is too many of us have what is commonly known as imposter syndrome. How did I get on this leadership team? I've got 3 other people on this leadership team. They have more experience than me. They're smarter than me. They've got more degrees than I do. And we tend to say to ourselves, I'm not good enough. So before all of those other things I just said, you got to believe that you're good enough. You won't be successful if you're carrying that baggage. Then you've got to know the story of the company. Too many people come into a company and they don't know the company's past. They don't know the story. They don't know tell the story of the company now. What are the strengths? What are the weaknesses from a story point of view? Have a story about about the core focus. A core focus is in a company is what do you do and why do you do it? Not you individually, but you as a company. What is it what does this company do really, really well, and why does it do it? And when you put those, and that can click together 2 phrases into 1 sentence, we help wealth management. We help our clients manage the stress of wealth management so that they can live their best lives, right? It's what you do and why you do it, right? And so it can tell and give them examples, give them stories on that. So I hope that answers your question. I tend to just go off and ramble there.
No, it's great. When you get that core focus, how does that ripple out to improve both the operations and then internally and the culture and the story that's being told externally?
Yeah, it's so the core focus has got what you do and why you do it. What you do is sort of fact-based, a few simple words, but why you do it is what you do is here and why you do it is here, right? You gotta, if you're not on board with what the company does, but more importantly, why they do it, and why you do it is things like it's what people, and years ago it was you got a letter from a client, and it said, I can't thank you enough. I haven't told you this, but here is the burden you've lifted off of me. Here's what you've given to us as a company. Now it's email or it's a phone call. That's okay. The point is that it's the emotion. You got to believe in what you do, but you have to be on the same page, the same emotional page. If you're not bought in emotionally, then it doesn't matter what the company does, because you're not living the emotion of the company, the culture of the company. Usually there's emotion is tied to core values as well. You got to know that, and you got to live it. You as a leader, if you preach it to them and they believe it, they'll preach it to all the new people coming into the company. They'll preach it to your clients. They'll preach it to your vendors. That fence conversation with the neighbor on Saturday, that is what drives a great culture and a great brand for a great company. I don't care if it's 10 people or 10,000 people.
Yeah, I love that. I love that we are celebrating in this conversation things that most people see intangible, belief, emotion, as true elements of power, in the growth of a company.
So open and honest and vulnerable. I'll be open and honest and vulnerable. I'll tell you a story. I've been in business 48 years. For probably the first 25 to 30 of those years, I valued culture. I valued core values. I valued my relationships with everybody else that I worked with. But I didn't put that as number one. What I put as number one is let's just get shit done, right? I want to do great work and I want you to do great work and I want you to do great work and I want all of our great work to come together and I want it to be a great result. I saw core values and culture as not a nice to have, but it wasn't something that I felt like I needed to focus on. So, but eventually I came to understand that that which binds us all together is not the goals and the result and the residual great feeling of hitting goals. It is the things that we have in common that we share in our hearts. What's in our heads is a great addition to it. And when I got that, it changed everything for me. And that's why I always focus 100% right people, right seats for every leadership team, for every company, because when you are 100% right people, right seats, everything's possible. If you're 50% right people, right seats, you're living in a world of hurt.
Well, thank you for the transparency in that story. I don't think you're alone in having been that kind of leader. I wish more leaders would come to that understanding that you've reached, because that's powerful. You mentioned how hard it can be for people to step into this work, to carry it forward, to make it a reality. And I find that the work that we both do in giving people a clear framework or a clear story is so powerful. There's a moment that I love in the discovery process that we do with clients, because we sort of pick up where you leave off, dig deeper, wrap more story around it. And then we get to tell the story back to the client. And we get to read this narrative of who they serve, why it matters, and the unique difference that they make and all of the positive outcomes of that. And a lot of times they'll hear that and they'll sort of sit for a minute and they'll be like, that's pretty good. And what I do is I always turn it back to them and I'm like, oh, great, because that's you. We are strategists. We're glorified editors of someone else's story. And I always turn it back and say, you have accomplished this. This is your 20, 30 years of blood, sweat, and tears and time lost with family and whatever else you gave up to get to this point.
Yeah, but I've got to add, I can't let you go on. You're more than that. You're the archaeologist that did the digging to find everything that they need to be reminded of, that we forget from the past, and that is the company, and that gets buried.
Wow, I'm going to hang on to that and remember that. Thank you for saying that. That's a really cool way to look at it. I see it the same way. They have forgotten some of the wonderful things about who they are, the wonderful reasons why they started the business to begin with. Totally agree.
If you want to know a company's story, the archaeology starts with the founder. Get them one-on-one and just get them to start telling stories. Ask more questions than you make statements. And get them open and honest and vulnerable, get them comfortable, and stories will start to they'll just start to come out.
That's funny you say that. The very first discovery I did to rework a brand was with a business owner, like around a fire pit with a cigar and some whiskey. Well, I don't smoke, but he had a cigar. He did great.
Yeah.
I think we were there for 3 hours, with him telling me stories. It was unique. We don't usually do that, which makes me think maybe we should bust out of conference room context, but it was exactly that. And it was hearing his heart for the business, why he started it, all the struggles they'd had. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.